Right, here we have a Worcester Greenstar 30 SI boiler. Relatively newer compared to some of the ones I've already shown you, but they work. Some of the components work the same and others don't, but we're going to go through the major components here. Okay, so we'll start at the top basically. Okay, so obviously you got your fan, right? Now this works slightly different. This has got what's called a zero governor on the gas valve basically, so you can't take any gas pressures from the gas valve. Okay, you have to gas rate this because the use on some of them there's still a test point, but it's useless. It's no use. This one hasn't got one at all. So the fan blows the gas directly into the heat exchanger where it's all mixed, the gas and air mixture. This is your main heat exchanger here. Okay, now I'm going to show you to take all of this off on the service. Okay, I mean obviously I know this one isn't piped up, it's not wired up, but I'm just going to go through some components. So there's the fan. This here is your main heat exchanger for your central heating and whatnot. Up here you've got this is your overheat stat, and then inside there you've got your flame detection electrodes and your spark electrodes. Moving further down, this big black thing here is your sump. If you was to take these two screws off, you'd be able to see in there, and this is where all your crap collects, and it needs to be cleaned out on an annual service. Okay, so this here is the overheat. This is the flue overheat stat, this one, right? So if there's a problem with the combustion, for whatever reason, it could be anything, blockages, all sorts of things, wrong gas pressures, this will lock the boiler out and tell you there's a problem and shut down. So technically it's a safety device. Moving down to here, this is your domestic hot water flow switch. So you can see that this here, it connects onto the cold mains, this one down here, and the water goes in there, and that flow switch, from this one of memory, I think it's like a paddle. I can't remember, but it basically senses water running through there and sends a signal down here to the PC board and tells the boiler to do its thing when there's a demand for hot water. Now these here are extremely prone to leaking. Now they use this on a lot of Worcesters. It normally leaks if it was to pull this pin out and remove this section, that it's held together with O-rings inside there, and sometimes the O-rings are knackered and you have to be really careful when you're taking that flow switch out and the flow switch assembly, because you can actually crack the plastic, which I've seen before, and then you're going to have to replace the entire plastic housing that it sits in as well, which is a bit of a ball ache when it's in position. And just underneath there, let me just try and get that out of the way. Alright, here, this is your diverter valve. Okay, again, I'll take that apart and show you how that works. Purely electronic, it's a paddle, and all it does is when whatever position it's required in, this moves up and down. PC board tells it to do that. And inside there's like a paddle which closes off one port, it goes up and then comes down depending on whether you want heating or hot water. And just underneath the diverter valve is the diverter valve motor, which tells that to do everything. Now you can buy this section, this entire section here, the diverter valve motor. Okay, so it's easy to change. It's one of the easiest diverters to change on any boiler. So Worcesters, they do have the plus points, they have the bad points as well, but obviously you've got your standard central heated pump there, which is obviously why everything goes back into the PCB. You've got your pressure gauge here, which obviously speaks for itself. Again, they do block up, so you can get issues where you've you're pressurising it, you've turned it off, and it will continue to rise for a while, and it's just because it's partially blocked. But again, easy part to change. Okay, what else we got? Right, normally here would sit a condensate trap, but that again, obviously it's disappeared, and God knows where that's gone. Just underneath the condensate trap, which should be cleaned on every service, by the way, taken out and cleaned. It's easy to take off, it's easy to put back on. This here is the domestic hot water sensor. It's not a NTC thermistor like all the old ones have and some of the cheaper boilers. This one's actually a little bit better. Again, easy to change, just a case of switching the cold water off the valve, which would normally be there, and changing that part's easy enough. Okay, so moving back up, we got the gas valve here. Now this was a bit of a crap design, to be honest with you, because the connections for the gas valve are down there, so to test the solenoid is extremely difficult on these, because you've got your first stage solenoid at the bottom and the second at the top. So the first one, it lights up on low flame, and then providing everything's okay, the second one will kick in, but that happens within seconds. What can happen is the solenoids can go faulty, and you can have it just kicking in on low flame and it won't go to high flame, because the solenoid, which all a solenoid is a coil of wire, that's all it is. And it will have broken down on the inside, so your boiler won't be firing up, won't get to high temperature at all. In fact, it will probably lock out after it's been on for a while. Sometimes it does, sometimes it don't. Again, gas valve are very easy to change. Okay, so normally inside there, this obviously is screwed onto there, and it's held on with a couple of O-rings underneath. And then what locks that in position is the holding pin, which in this case is already off, look. So you put that on, you tighten that up, but whatever you do, don't forget to put that in, because you can technically pull, with this tight, even with this not tight, you can pull that out of its hole, so you leave yourself a gas leak. Okay, this is to adjust the air ratio for the boiler, which would all be in the manual. It's always best to have the manual if you're servicing it. If you haven't got it at hand, just download it on Google. It takes 2 seconds to get that through. And then right at the back, you've got an air pressure switch up there. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Now I'm going to just make another video. Now we know what all the components do. Common issue on this one is changing the PRV, so that'll be the next video. Okay, right, so that's it. So pretty much all these Worcesters work in very similar, whether it's a 28 or 24 or 30 kilowatt, they all work in the same sort of process. It's just they look slightly different on the inside. So I'll show you a few things on the next vid, and yeah, cheers.